Hello, Extratime.
They point to the league not to get a high because it damages your reputation. It makes people, when they read it, just laugh at you.
But simple look, they're playing in the League One and they're playing in the Europa League and they're credit and the game in this country. Maybe we should get Stephen Kenny then to manage the Irish team.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Extratime Football Podcast. Your host Luke Jordan, Season 12, Episode 18 this week. Delighted to say Donal, Ryan and Macdara first, who is in Berlin as far as where. Macdara, how are you?
Yes, I've travelled up from Leipzig and based in Berlin for the next while. Yeah, I'm good, Luke. Good to hear you, Donal, as well.
Yeah, I'm in the foreign climes of Sligo here, just in the outskirts of Sligo town, the metropolis. So...
Coming this week then, we're going to continue on with our Euro chats we spoke about last Saturday today. We'll do a bit as well of our mid-season review of some clubs. And whatever clubs don't get to today, we'll get to them next week as well. But anyway, starting with the Euros, Macdara, do you want to fill us in what you've been at the last 4 days since we last spoke on Saturday?
Yeah, so I think I talked to you just after the game in Hamburg I was at between Georgia and Czechia. And I was saying I was going off to find Uwe Seeler's big boot, which I did. Put a postcard up about my trip to Hamburg. So the famous German footballer has his right foot immortalised in metal outside the ground, and actually around it there's a few kind of plaques, so much more modest, set into the ground. Some footprints from other famous Hamburg players, including Kevin Keegan, Ernst Happel, and Felix Magath. Yeah. So, but since then, yeah, I travelled up from Leipzig to Berlin. I came in on just the morning of the Netherlands Austria game, and the night before I went to that game, and the night before I was at the Italy Croatia game, which was quite an exciting end to the game. 98-minute equaliser for Italy to effectively put Croatia out.
Meant to ask you, the trains, did it arrive on time? Were the trains good, the first class service?
The first class was good. My train was about 40 minutes late leaving Hamburg, so it didn't leave till about 10:30 at night. And I was a little bit worried I was going to fall asleep and wake up in Munich, which was the destination of the train. But I needn't have been too worried about that, because in Berlin, about an hour away from home, I got quite a lot of Scottish fans. So so safe to say I didn't fall asleep the rest of the way down. So yeah, first class was good. Because it was delayed slightly, I got a free biscuit, which was nice.
In terms of then, did you see much of Hamburg? Did you get to go around by the stadium?
No, I can give you an update on Hamburg. I'm going to be up in Hamburg later on, so in the tournament. But I did say I'd give you an update maybe on Leipzig. So if people are there before, so I did go to the Stasi Museum. That was quite interesting. If anyone's watched the Americans TV show, there was like disguises that the Stasi used. So it was like fake beards and wigs and stuff, which was quite entertaining to see. And then the other thing was I went to see, it seemed to be the biggest memorial for a battle in Europe. So the memorial to the Battle of the Nations, which Napoleon fought there, and that was quite spectacular. So climbed 500 steps to the top of that, about 100 meters above ground level, and I had a good look out over the city. So yeah, that is my whistle stop tourist recommendations for Leipzig. So I'll be able to give you some Berlin stuff and some Hamburg later on in the tournament.
A bit difficult to get to Leipzig. There's no actual direct flights, is there, from Dublin?
Well, flight to Berlin, and it's only an hour on the train. So actually it was quite handy. So yeah, when I came up yesterday, the train was fine. There was a lot of Dutch fans coming in for that game as well, but a huge amount of Austrian fans. So yeah, huge traveling support, because the night in Leipzig, Croatia fans owned that stadium. Like the Italians only had one end of the ground, and the Croatians had about 3/4 of the ground, and they didn't stop from first minute to 98 minute. And when the goal went in, it just went silent. It's one of the, like, obviously the Italians off to my left went mad, as did the Croatian journalist, the poor fellow who was sitting beside me, and he nearly threw his laptop away. And immediately to my right, there was 3 Italian journalists that were all working with the same newspaper, and they were delighted. But not that anyone cares, but when a goal goes in 98 minutes, you kind of have to rip up the start and middle of your match report. So the Italians kind of did a mini celebration and then got back to filling off the match report, and I was the same. I got mine done slightly quicker than them, I'm not saying I'm any better, but I was rushing to definitely make it to the press conference. So I just gave a quick chow and I got a chow back, and they kept their heads down. But we also all got covered in beer when Croatia scored. Modric, I'm sure they watched the match. Modric missed a penalty, and about 30 seconds later, he scored. And I was talking to you, I think the other day, saying how good the seat was in Hamburg. I picked the same seat, or sorry, in Leipzig, I picked the same seat again, which is in the lower tier, right in the front. But that meant I was within beer range for when the beer went up in the air when Croatia scored. So I think I was a bit luckier than the others. The poor woman beside me, she got barely showered in beer, and the laptop had to be kind of cleaned off as well. So that was I got two really good games, because the games other in the west of Germany weren't great, because then Berlin last night, Austria 3, Netherlands 2 was absolutely brilliant, and the Austrian fans were absolutely brilliant in that game. They were, obviously the result went their way, but they were at the end of the ground, which is the gap where the Olympic flame was. So they were doing a call and response from the left side of their support to the right side of their support, and yeah, the Dutch were put kind of in their place in terms of the noise, and also put in place by their team. We can talk maybe a little bit about the post match reaction, because that was quite entertaining.
Yeah, I'm going to jump to the post match reaction of both games now. Just a quick word maybe on my friend Luka Modric. Quite an emotional game for him. I think the presser as well, post match, there was a nice kind of compliments towards him from maybe, I think the Italian journalist said something quite nice to him about being a great player. 39 scored, which looked like it was going to be a goal to get them through to the knockout stage, but unfortunately it looks like it's the end of the road for him and the end of the road for Croatia this tournament too.
Yeah, I think what was really, I suppose, remarkable, maybe, like, he got brought across with about 10 minutes to go, substituted. And obviously the Croatian fans, well, they were already on their feet, because they were on their feet for the whole game, but they gave him a standing ovation. But the Italian fans off to the left gave him a really good reception as well, which I thought just shows the recognize what a great player was. The Croatian manager afterwards said he needed a bit of just fresh legs at the end, and they should have seen out that game, but they got caught. So yeah, like we're talking on Wednesday evening, so not all the third places are complete. There's still one set of fixtures to go, one of the last groups, the Portugal group to go. But I think pretty much they're out. I think England needed to win by 4-0 last night. So yeah, it does seem to be the end of certainly it's the end of Croatia this tournament, but whether you could see him coming back and playing on, well, I don't really know.
Just on Modric as well. Like, obviously, I'm a Sligo Rovers man first and foremost, but my team across the water would be Spurs, and always loved him when he played for Tottenham. From the minute he signed, I don't know, he didn't really like pull up any trees in his first few seasons there, but grew into such an influential player for Spurs under Redknapp as well, and obviously got his big money move to Madrid. But just seeing him like turn into this absolute one of the best centre midfielders in the world and really cementing his place at Real Madrid, you know, going on integral parts of the teams that were winning all the Champions Leagues, and what he did with Croatia as well, you know, drove them on to a World Cup final in that time as well, and they came close again another couple of times in international tournaments as well. So it was a sad end to see him bow out like that. As you said, Macdara, I don't think he'll be back for Croatia on the international stage. I'd say he'll give it another rattle or two with Real Madrid, but he can look back with great pride on his career, I think.
Yeah, it was a delight to watch some of those outside of the foot passes the other night in Leipzig.
Yeah, 39 years of age, still playing at the highest level. I suppose he's not the only one at this tournament too. At that age, I mean, mentioned Ronaldo and Pepe as well, who were playing later on Wednesday evening, both 40 this year and 41, and it's incredible, again, testament to them. Quick word on Spalletti. You wrote an article for Extratime.com. Had to defend himself about the formation he played to get them to the last 16. The headline.
Yeah, it was super entertaining. Like he was asked a question about whether there was a pact within the player, and he kind of took umbrage with the question, and basically gave a 10-minute answer to that question, where he was like, well, I did my dissertation on 3-5-2. I know what I'm talking about. We played this system against Empoli in their last warm-up game. They played in America. Yeah, it was quite remarkable. It was classic kind of Italian. It was really passionate. Yeah, he really went off on one. Whereas And then Ronald Koeman last night, there's nothing like the Dutch bluntness. What he was asked is the first question was, um, there was a lot of mistakes in this match. Will you list them all? And I was like, oh, okay. And Koeman went, well, how much time have you got? Because there was a lot of mistakes. And he was then asked was if he lost the last 16, because they finished third place, they will go through. What's his position as manager if they lose? And then he was asked, is he still razor sharp as a coach? It was absolutely brilliant. But then Koeman, he was equally blunt in his assessment of how the team played. Just quote him here. We started very badly. We didn't defend well. We were not aggressive, and we gave them too many openings. There was a lack of pressure, and we were really very, very bad. Yeah, it was. The both of them were quite entertaining. And then Ralf Rangnick was entertaining his own way. So yeah, it was worthwhile going into those post-match press conferences and just getting a feel for those managers, particularly as I'm going back. I'll be at the Switzerland-Italy game in Berlin on Saturday evening, so I'm really looking forward to that one. So yeah, it was worth, and I'm hoping to get to the Austria game, and they play on Tuesday, and that's in Leipzig. So there was some discussion about Red Bull Leipzig with Rangnick.
Just a couple of things on the Dutch game. First one was, I mean, Koeman made quite a sharp decision taking off Vernon rather. Was it 33 minutes in?
Yeah,
They whipped them off.
Yeah, less than, I think it was 36, 37 minutes. And I was kind of looking at the bench, was the physio going to hand him an ice pack? And it was none of that. But like all the goals, all the three Austrian goals all came down the left-hand side. And when we spoke the other day, I talked about Xavi Simons or Siemens, I think I'm supposed to pronounce it, who I thought was excellent in the game against France, and he'd started on the bench, which was a bit strange. But yeah, no, Koeman didn't hang around, and he made that change, and then they came straight after half time and got an equaliser. But and he did say they were better in the second half, and they were. But Austria were really impressive. They're not just a gegenpress side; they can play some really good football, and Rangnick has them very well set up.
Yeah, that was kind of my last question for you on the Euros kind of matches was actually how impressive Austria were, because again, 6 points through top of the group. I think most people would have said they would have been fighting for third probably in that group. That was probably the guessing of everyone's kind of pools when they're looking through the group stage. Through top of the group with a group of France and Holland is no mean feat.
Yeah, no, that's it. I have a piece up today just from the comments from Rangnick, because he was a bit of a figure of fun from his time at Man United, where they finished sixth, and I think they only got like 58 points, I think it was. But he took over, they qualified, they only lost the one game, that was to Belgium. They're only a point behind Belgium. And, they lost their opening game. It was no goal to France. They were really good against Poland, and they were excellent against the Dutch. And, people talk about, there's not a lot of time in international football, but when a tournament comes around, they do have that time. But Rangnick, this Austria side is like a club side. He's come through the Red Bull system. He's sporting director at Red Bull Salzburg and RB Leipzig. There's three players, a lot of players that come through those systems, so they know that kind of system and how they played. The three players that play at Leipzig at the minute. The other thing that's gone their way is just even location. So all the teams have a team base and they're spread out around Germany, but Austria's is actually in Berlin. They're using the Hertha Berlin's training ground, which is right beside the Olympiastadion. So they played the first game in maybe Dortmund or anyway, somewhere in the West, but they played the last two games in Berlin. They're playing their last 16 game in Leipzig, which I said is only an hour away. And should they win that, they're back in Berlin for a quarterfinal. So they're kind of well set up. He was saying he was giving the players the day off today. Basically, because David Alaba had said it to the players, right, they have a day off, so he's their kind of non-playing captain because he's still carrying an injury, and they seem really, really well set up. Their last 16 ties against either Turkey or Czechia, so we'll know that this evening. And yeah, they played like some really good football, like good goals were scored, and Marcel Sabitzer, another kind of reject, if I can say that, from United, from Man United, but he got an absolute beautiful goal for the winner. He kind of looked up saw there was kind of people were covering, he just slammed it in with his left boot. So yeah, dark horses. I caught the end of the RTE coverage last night, and I think Kevin Doyle was saying that Didi Hamann had talked about Austria be maybe dark horses, and people talked a little bit ahead of the tournament. But as you said, they were in a really difficult group, but they've come through, haven't won the group, put France in and runners up, and you certainly wouldn't discount them. But yeah, Rangnick was quite interesting. Like, Koeman was asked a couple of questions in English, and he spoke in English. Rangnick didn't use a translator. Obviously listened to the questions in English, but was keen to just answer in German. And it was quite a lengthy press conference. He was, I suppose, when you win the group, top the group, he was quite happy to take way more questions than Ronald Koeman took. And the man of the match, Sabitzer, he came in as well. So yeah, like I said, I haven't seen Rangnick just on the television in terms of how he did it at Man United. I think he showed what a good manager he actually is, and maybe what a basket case Man United is, that actually the difficulty he had proved Erik ten Hag didn't really do much better. And he turned down, Rangnick seemed he turned down Bayern Munich, and people were going, that was absolutely mad. Why did he do that? But he's put him in a position where he could win the Euros, but he was asked that question and he said, it is very unlikely that we win the Euros, but we want to progress. So he wasn't biting anymore on that after the game.
Yeah, well, I think people forget as well, in terms of Rangnick himself was seen as an inspiration for many of these modern coaches. I know Klopp is one of them, and like, again, he's definitely a pedigree, and I think people judging him off that temporary term of manager Manchester United are they're wrong. To judge him off a 6-month period when we all know Manchester United's basket case. But anyway, this is the Manchester United podcast. We can move on. Macdara, before we wrap up our Euros part, want to explain what you're at now the next couple of days before we chat again? What are we going to be doing?
So today, Wednesday, is the last group game. So there's actually a couple of days break. So I'm going to be doing some tourist stuff tomorrow, so that's all fine. Bit of street art, which anyone who follows me on Instagram will know. So I'm doing a street art tour on Friday, but I'm also planning to go out to that press conference, which is in the Olympic Stadium, for that Italy-Switzerland game, and then couple more days off. I'm hoping to get to then Leipzig. So there's you kind of applied for your matches well ahead of the tournament. So I'd booked kind of whatever was four games in 5 days, and I got them all. But as the knockout stages, the teams become confirmed, you can then apply. So said I applied for that the Sweden-Italy game, and I'll apply this evening hopefully for the Austria game. They'll play, say, the runners up, Turkey, Czechia. So they're the two next games that on my horizon. So thankfully I'm staying here in a nice Airbnb in Berlin, which is actually bigger than my house. So yeah, it's nice to be based here somewhere for the next week and do a few bits and pieces. But yeah, hopefully get out to the stadium a couple of times, say for that press conference and then for the match on Saturday evening.
Okay, we'll wrap up our Euros talk there. Macdara's going to stay with us. We're going to chat now about the League of Iron Parent Division and talk about one or two clubs and how they're getting on in our little mid-season review. So stay tuned.
And there's kind of a lot of grumbling about maybe we don't have enough Premier League players, but in terms of the Championship,
But what's the point in grumbling about it?
But the step
I can't hold about it, can I? If they're not playing the Premier, what's the point of me grumbling?
The step up to international football in the Championship is it easily managed?
Well, I tell you back there when we played in 2002. What's the point of me grumbling? We had lads who were all at the bottom of the Premier, real scrapping away. Kince and Matty Holland and Gary Breen, who hadn't even got a club. What's the point of me grumbling? So I don't subscribe to that. You just whatever it is, whatever I've got, I'll get them together and make the best of them and try and make sure we qualify. Grumbling is not one of the things I do.
You can subscribe to each new episode of the Extratime.ie Sportscast on iTunes. Please give a rating or add a comment there to let us know your views.
What's the point of me grumbling?
Welcome back to part two. Macdara, as I said, and Donal are still alongside me. Donal, go to yourself first to give Macdara a breather, to have a glass of water, and loads of talking there the last 15-20 minutes. Sligo Rovers we'll start with. Hasn't been, I know at the start of the year maybe was a little bit worried coming into the year, but what are the thoughts now currently on Sligo Rovers so far this year. What's your initial thoughts?
Well, I think like before a ball was kicked this season, a lot of people were saying around seventh would be a great finish for Sligo Rovers this year. I was one of those people that said that, and to be honest, I think the season is pretty much kind of going as expected, if not a little bit better. Now, I know the position on the table would suggest otherwise, as would some of the performances, but you look at the performance there against Waterford and Dundalk just before the break, and I think Rovers were a team that needed the break to come when it did. Injuries were starting to pile up. Players getting pulled away for international duty. Stefan Radosavljevic was turned out to be a big loss over the course of the 2 games that he was away for, and the leaving cert as well, which was crippling Rovers because they had to promote so many players from the academy and up there from the under-19s and under-20s this year. I think there was 4 or 5 players lost to doing the leaving cert. So when you factor all that in, I still think Rovers have enough to stay up, given that Dundalk will probably go on a little mini resurgence now. John Daly's been speaking out in the press this week about how he needs 7 or 8 players to kind of get Dundalk to where he wants them to be at. Whether he does that in this window remains to be seen. And even if he does, it's still going to be an awful lot for an awful lot of players coming in at the one time. And we saw this has been a cause of concern for Dundalk in the off season before a ball was kicked this year, and for Bohemians as well, just leaving all their business till the last minute and having to bring in a lot of players at the one time at the last minute. So I still think Sligo Rovers have a lot to or have enough to certainly stay up anyway. Whether it remains to be seen if they can improve on things in the second half of the season. Of course, they have a very difficult game on Friday night, as mentioned previously. We're recording here on Wednesday evening, so a huge game, in the showgrounds on Friday night as Shamrock Rovers come to town, and I suppose a baptism of fire really for the second half of the season. And of course, Shamrock Rovers have an ex-Bitterhead man who's banging in the goals, and Johnny Kenny, who's in flying form, come back into the second half of the season. I saw stats going around today that he's taken on the second most shots so far in the league. I'm not sure if it's 8 or 9 goals that he's sitting on at the moment, but he's second only to Pat Hoban in terms of goals and in terms of shots taken. So Kenny will certainly feel like he has a point to prove on Friday night. I'm sure, of course, we're all aware of what's going on there between himself and Sligo Rovers and Shamrock Rovers, and there's been plenty of talk about that. So it promises to be a pretty entertaining game in terms of that. But in terms of how Rovers season is going, I'd say it's pretty much going as expected. One thing I'd say they will be targeting is the Cup this year. They couldn't have got a better draw really. Cove Wanderers at home in the showgrounds. Couldn't be asking for a better draw than that. I don't want to be jinxing it now or anything, as Rovers went out of the Cup in the first round for the last 3 years running, so they'll be hoping to progress a little bit further this year, I think.
Yeah, and just suppose we mentioned players coming in now. Max Mata was probably the one that has gone out the door, a bit of a loss there, but they have brought in Stephen Mallon, who, again, players probably been around the block now at this stage, still quite young, but hasn't really found a home. But there is definite talent in this player if they can get out of him.
Absolutely, and when the signing was announced, it was a signing I got really excited about. He always really impressed me, particularly when he was playing for Bohemians, and there was talk of him coming to Sligo Rovers before that, but I think Bohs didn't want him to go to another team in the League of Ireland, so he went up to Cliftonville and had a great spell up there. I mean, it was part of the team that won the Cup. I think they're not sure what else they won. They did win a couple other things as well, I think. But he's certainly a player that will excite the fans, get them up off their seat. Now, he won't be available for the game on Friday. He'll be only eligible from the 1st of July onwards. But yeah, certainly a very good addition, and I'm sure John Russell will be looking to add 1 or 2 more before the window closes.
I think maybe the biggest sign they could make this summer is Ed McGinty staying for the full season. His contract's up in July. Is there any more word on whether he'll be going back to his club in England, or is he going to stay for the rest of the season?
There's no official word yet as to what's been going on, and as far as I'm aware, and Ed seems to be very happy back in Sligo. Like, he came up through the academy at Rovers. He knows the place. He grew up in Ballyshannon, just up the road from Donegal. So he's more than happy to stay here. And his performances this year have shown that he is undoubtedly the best keeper in the league. I don't think there's an argument there really. Like, the difference is between what we've seen from Rovers teams in the years or two that he's gone, and since he's come back, the confidence that he instills in the defence. And it's another stat that was going around was showing that he's made the most saves. Now you can say that that's probably that could be down to a poor defence or what's in front of him, but undoubtedly the best keeper in the Premier Division by a long stretch. And another player Rovers will be keen to hang on to is Ollie Denham. He's in a similar situation where his contract is up this summer with Cardiff City, and he's been outstanding really for Rovers. There was a while there he was the only player that had played every minute of every game up until the Bohs game that was on RTE, and he had to come off there at halftime due to an injury. Now I'd say he was a player that was probably glad to see the break coming, as I mentioned. Because just coming back from an injury, probably wasn't performing at the level that he had been before that. But an absolutely fantastic addition that he's been, and I'm sure Rovers will be keen to hang on to him as well. If they were to lose both McGinty and Ollie Denham, it would leave two absolutely massive holes in the Rovers defence and would probably change the trajectory of their season.
Just a quick one then, I suppose, on the injury front. Obviously, they are suffering a centre back. Kind of part of their two main centre backs are injured. Is there any time frame where Nando Pinacker or Mahan be back this side of the Christmas, or will it be next season they'll be back available?
Well, Nando Pinacker and Simon Power are both back in training. I suspect that they will feature on Friday. They should be in the squad anyway. John Mahan is also back in training. Whether he'll kick a ball or not again this or at all this season remains to be seen, but he is back training with the first team. But Nando Pinacker certainly will be back in contention at some stage this half of the season, and Simon Power should be as well. And Power has been a huge loss. Obviously in terms of goal contributions, all he had managed was one assist so far, but his performances were bringing a lot more. I mean, there's obviously a lot more to a game of football than just the stats. Like the eye test as well always says a lot, and he was really growing into an integral part of this Rovers team and really kind of showing what John Russell wants to do, like really kind of epitomizes the style of play that John Russell has. And to lose him obviously was a harsh enough 3-game ban for the red card that he got down at Waterford and then got injured straight away, as I'm sure Macdara from a Shamrock Rovers perspective would be familiar with Simon Power's injury woes. But to lose him for that length of time was certainly a sucker punch to Sligo Rovers.
Lastly then, just on the manager itself, bit of pressure again on John Russell. It's kind of similar last season, kind of some good results, some poor results. Where do you stand yourself, and where's the fans stand with John Russell currently in charge?
50-50, I'd say, Luke, to be honest. Obviously, and I'd say this is across the board at any club, when a certain cohort of fans want a manager gone, they're the ones that are going to shout the loudest. You're not going to hear too much from people that are going to be like, well, actually give him time, or maybe he's doing a good job, or this, that, and the other. So I'd say there is an even split. Some of the performances, and John Russell would say this himself, have been inexcusable so far this season. Obviously, the performance against Bohemians at home in the showgrounds live on RTE, they didn't even come out of the changing rooms. It was one of the worst performances I've personally seen in a long time. But they don't need me to tell them that. But then they turn it around with other big performances and big games. Go up to Talca Park 2 weeks later and beat Shelbourne and are good value for the win, even though they were clinging on a bit at the end. But still, Shelbourne weren't able to break them down. So it's I don't know if there's pressure on John Russell. Obviously, like I said, the position in the table would suggest otherwise. But I think that Rovers are going as expected so far this season.
Moving on from the West now, we'll go back to the capital city, Macdara. We'll talk about Shelbourne first, top of the league. I think everyone at this stage now is starting to firmly believe that the Shels title charge could be really on.
Yeah, Shelbourne's title it is. Isn't that what the people want to say to put pressure on them? But yeah, like they've only 14 games left. They're sitting top of the league. They're 2 points clear of Derry City, and they've a goal in hand. And then they're 12 points game in hand rather, and they're 12 points clear of Shamrock Rovers, who do have a game in hand on Shelbourne. But you have to look at what they've done. Looking at their results, they've 12 wins, 6 of them by way of 1-0 wins, and 4 of them by kind of 1 goal. But the thing is, every game that they've gone in front, they've won, and that's been really important. So they've got in front. Defensively, they're well set up. I think when we spoke at the start of the year, we talked about defensively they were very good. I think I'd agree in terms of Ed McGinty probably been the best goalkeeper but Conor Kearns is excellent as well, and that's given them Shelbourne a platform. But they've got goals at important times up front. Sean Boyd's been probably definitely more available to them than they were last year, and yeah, like they're there thereabouts, and they're there on merit. I don't think that many people saw this happening, but they're clear having. I think the only, I say defensively, I think the only team they've let in fewer goals is Galway. I think that's who they play on Friday evening. So yeah, it's been a really, really impressive. We've talked about this before, but it's not the mid-season. We're in our break just because it happens to be when the Euros is on. But I say 21 of the 36 games are gone, and they're in a really good position to go on. Like, they do have a pretty handy draw, if I could say that, in Europe. So that means they're playing a Gibraltar team. They will go through. It does seem like there's pretty low number of tickets available to them. I think you're talking about a couple of hundred. And then when they go through to the next round, remind me, is it Zurich they've got? I don't think they'll go any further. So I think the expectation is they'll probably play 4 games in Europe across a fortnight, and then they'll go out of Europe, and then that gives them a chance to concentrate in the league. And they've a decent enough cup draw. I think if I have it right, they're playing Bray. So yeah, really, really impressive by Damien Duff's Shelbourne side.
I suppose the only possible glitch now to them is that Gavin Malloy has left, and he has been arguably one of their better players, maybe their best player the last 18 months for Shels, and that's going to be a huge blow for them. I know Damien Duff was kind of talking about they have Paddy Barden options there to cover it, but Gavin Malloy has been brilliant for them. Yeah, no,
that is a big loss because he's been a crucial player, but that's the nature of what happens if players do well and the situation arises that a bid comes in from the UK, then that's what happened. But they've signed Sam Bone, they've signed Ali Coote, so they've brought in a couple of players during the window already before it's actually opened. But yeah, no, Malloy is definitely is a loss to them.
Yeah, I think the Ali Coote one kind of caught me by surprise. That was a real good sign, especially adding their attacking kind of options. And I suppose one of the attacking options they do have the rest of the season, he's here every year, and he's probably up there player of the year as well, Jarvis, who's been excellent on the left hand side.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal, a really handful for every defence. That was so important to get him back for this season. And yeah, he's been absolutely brilliant.
Shamrock Rovers, then, where do you want to start?
Well, we just kind of mentioned the cup there, because the cup draw has a real knock-on effect for 4 teams and the other teams that are looking to win it, because Bohs have been drawing home against Shamrock Rovers. So Rovers the 2019 winners. And then the other tie is Derry City against St. Patrick Athletic, which is the winners of the last 3 FAI Cups. Obviously, Pats are the holders and won 2 years before. Derry had won the year before. So 2 of the 2 big sides, or 2 big Premier Division sides, are going to go out, and that's going to open up the cup draw for the teams. The Rovers haven't had a good run in the cup since they won it in 2019, and probably that draw against Bohemians is probably one of the most difficult ones they could have got. At least it is in Dublin, but it's a much, the away section in Dynamo Park so small, so there's only kind of 400 tickets that is going to go to that one. And so there's disappointment with that draw within the fan base of Shamrock Rovers, because essentially when they lost against Pats just ahead of the break, second time they'd lost to Pats in Richmond Park with having led and lost that lead and lost both games 2-1. There was kind of an air of resignation that probably the league is gone. So people were looking forward to Europe and that draw. We spoke about that last week, that the draw is reasonable enough for Shamrock Rovers, and they were looking for a good cup draw to have a good cup run. But say they've probably got one of the most difficult ties. Maybe Derry away probably would have been maybe a little bit more difficult. And so yeah, there's kind of an air of resignation that really they're probably too far behind. Like, since they beat Drogheda United 4-0, and the 8 games since then, they've only 2 wins and 4 losses. And they have had the injury players have coming back. It does seem like when they come back after the break, there's probably only going to be 2 players missing. That's Lee Grace, who pulled up in the game against St. Patrick Athletic, and Sean Kavanagh, who seems to be a bit more long-term. Like, Lee Stacey came in to go for that Pats game. People have been talking about, was Paul's good enough and bring Stacey in, but he didn't really have a good game.
No.
He was kind of at fault for one of the goals. He kind of picked up a knock. I think there was a back pass to him which really shouldn't have been played because it put it under too much pressure. And I think that might be the one game he'll play in goal for Rovers, certainly in the league this year. And then the talk is, okay, our Rovers going to go out and spend money and get a goalkeeper in the window. And if they're going to do that, they're only going to bring a goalkeeper in who they think will be number one. But Poles wasn't dropped. He was injured coming into that game. But it's been this big talking point. Now, can this Shamrock Rovers squad go on a run and win 8 of the next 10 games? Yeah, of course they can. They've proved that over the last 4 years. But the difficulty is this squad is 1 year older, and that's manifesting itself a lot in these injuries. Do I expect that Shamrock Rovers will win 8 of the next 10 games? No, I don't. And if they're going to win a 5th league title in a row, they're going to have to hope that Shelbourne and Derry City falter, because Rovers are 10 points off Derry. Now, they do have 2 games in hand. Yeah, but that's with this Rovers form this year, you're not looking at those 2 games in hand and saying, oh, there's 6 points. And there are also 2 games to be played when they hope to be going deep in Europe. Like the hope stroke expectation, I don't know, is that they will win this first round in Europe. And then if they do, they'll play right till the end of August, guaranteed 4 rounds, play 8 weeks in a row in Europe. But it's a difficult enough draw. But then, so those 2 league games, if they do win that European tie, those 2 games in hand are going to be pushed into September, and then that's going to be really, really difficult. But the nature of the injuries does seem that it goes those players back, and that's been key, because when they've had players missing, they've had to play players for more minutes than they would have liked, and then those players have got injured. So yeah, it's definitely been a disappointing season so far, and there's a lot resting financially on a run in Europe. And as we mentioned when we recorded last time, there's only for Shamrock Rovers fans traveling to the away game, they're only getting 50 tickets, it seems, for this away game in Europe.
I do think that the goalkeeping issue has definitely hindered Shamrock Rovers. I think there's a body of evidence to suggest now after 21 games that I don't think Paul should be number 1 goalkeeper at Shamrock Rovers. I think I always back that Stewie Byrne, I think it was, said before that having a goalkeeper that's not reliable, or maybe in his words, dodgy at the back, it can sometimes be like a virus throughout the team that creates unease. And I think that Shamrock Rovers, when the window opens, have to go into the market now to get a goalkeeper. I think they need. I just think from a neutral point of view, I think that's the first decision they have to make, which is a tough decision to make, I know, but I think they have to bring a goalkeeper in.
Yeah, and they're not going to bring a goalkeeper in to sit on the bench. So if they do make a move in the transfer window, it'll be bring a player in that they believe will go straight into goal.
It's interesting though that the kind of fans are maybe, what's the word, like kind of resigned to the fact they won't win the league. 15 games to go. This is a different. Like, Derry have never got over the line the last 2 seasons. Shelbourne's a completely new team, never been in the situation before. I think it'd be naive to think that Shamrock Rovers can't win this league. Because Shamrock Rovers have the experience, to have the players to know how to deal with pressure in certain situations. Like, couple of draws and defeats here and there. Like, look at Arsenal the last 2 seasons, not coasting, but doing really well towards the top of the table. Bit of pressure creaks in the back end of the season, drop points, draws, losses, and Man City ticked them off. And I think in the Irish context, Shamrock Rovers are always very good at that, putting those 5, 6, 7 games in the bounce and winning games off. Suddenly you have 15 points gained, Shels, and you pick up 6 or 7 points. The gap then reduced to 5. I think it's still too early to call that the title race is over for Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, I think they certainly will close that gap, and then that will put pressure on. And yeah, you're dead right. There's a lot of players, particularly in the Shelbourne side, less with Derry, who haven't been involved in a title run-in. So it is new for them. But like with Damien Duff as manager, he just seems to give them such belief.
He's an aura about him, doesn't he?
Yeah, there is, and there's the other thing, there's less of an aura about Shamrock Rovers, because there was other times, and we saw it in previous years with Dundalk, when they were in their pomp under Stephen Kenny, they'd go to away grounds and they nearly had the match won before. They'd go a goal in front and then that would be it.
Yeah.
Whereas Shamrock Rovers now, they're going goals in front and they're losing matches. And as I mentioned earlier on with Shelbourne, they're going in front and they're winning all those games. So that's the difference. But Rovers certainly, I think they'll push them. But you have to overhaul two teams, and you have to overhaul it when, I think they'll go certainly deeper in Europe. I think they'll get to the playoff round, and then they're trying to juggle all those matches at the same time. With that goalkeeping situation still, will it be resolved? Will it not be resolved? It'll be, the window opens officially in 5 days' time.
For Rovers, the last one before we finish up, if they don't get into Europe, don't finish the league, but qualify for Europe and say win the FAI Cup, is that a successful season for Shamrock Rovers, do you think, in terms of salvaging the year, to finish in the European spots and say win the FAI Cup?
Well, the cup is a big thing for all clubs, but it's a very big thing for Shamrock Rovers. The fact that they went so long without winning it, like over 30 years, until they won it in 2019, and that was the catalyst for them to go on and win the league titles. So I don't think any Shamrock Rovers fan is going to turn the nose up at not winning the FAI Cup. I think if they go out in the first round in Europe, that's a bit different. They have the chance they've got a decent enough tie should they lose the first round in the Europa Conference League second qualifying round, but very, very difficult to get to the group stages. I think if they get to playoff round and won the FAI Cup and didn't win the league, I think most Shamrock Rovers fans would be quite happy. Obviously it's a golden chance to win 5 in a row. No one's ever done it, and that's the desire for everyone at the club, be it the management team, the players, or the fan base. But to win the league is difficult. To do it 5 times in a row is really, really hard. No one's ever done it before. So if there's a bit of silverware and Rovers go deep in Europe, you can't be that greedy, particularly as other clubs have closed the gap and the quality is there. So there is still, there's lots of football to be played, less league games than maybe Rovers fans would like to try and, they need those matches to try and overhaul those two teams ahead. But there's still loads of football to be played before the season comes to an end, domestically anyway, with the FAI Cup final in the Aviva Stadium.
Yeah, I think that's what I'd be echoing. There's 15 games left for Shamrock Rovers to salvage their kind of title credentials this season. Before we go, for wrap this week's episode, I think, Donal, you want to say a quick word about the death of Tommy Gorman this week?
Yeah, Luke, it's been a very sad couple of days here at Sligo. The Tommy Gorman was a huge Sligo Rovers man, a huge Sligo man. We're a proud bunch of people up here in Sligo, and he was always very proud to be from Sligo and to represent Sligo wherever he went, be it as RTE Northern correspondent in Northern Ireland or European, when he was over in Brussels for years. But wherever he went, he was always proud to be from Sligo and always talked about his love of Sligo and his love for Sligo Rovers. And he was head, neck and tail in the involved in the development, the redevelopment plans for the showgrounds. This was going to be his baby, I suppose, in his retirement. And in the short time that he was retired, he had already given so much to that redevelopment. Was present when the Taoiseach was in town to, present plans and everything like that. And like I said, was really heavily involved and really just kind of embodied what Sligo Rovers was about, and always spoke so well about them whenever he got the opportunity, and was, like I said, very heavily involved. And there's a real cloud over the town and a real cloud over the showgrounds the last few days in his passing. And obviously a huge game in the showgrounds. On Friday night, Rovers versus Shams, and no bigger game in Sligo, and no bigger way to pay a tribute to him. And I'm sure he'll be looking down on the showground, smiling on Friday night ahead of that one.
Luke, just to say, people might see on the RTE Sport, Rory Houston is quite involved in Sligo Rovers. He's wrote a wonderful piece about Tommy Gorman on the RTE website. He just ended it with, as funeral details were published this morning, one line stood out. It read, family flowers only, donations in lieu, if desired, to the Sligo Rovers Stadium Development Fund. The love affair never ends, which I thought was a wonderful end to a really nice piece that, any League of Ireland fan they knew. Tommy Gorman he was a Sligo Rovers fan, number one, but he was a League of Ireland fan as well. So, may you rest in peace.
Yeah, I think we can all say from extratime.com that we have our greatest sympathies to the Gorman family this time. Macdara, Donal, thank you.
Thanks,
See you later.
Before we go, a quick reminder that Oisin Lang will be back with the Extratime.com voice notes podcast roughly in your podcast feed for Saturday morning. Be sure to check out Extratime.com as we continue to cover the girls and also our League of Ireland covers throughout the season. Thanks, Macdara. Thanks, Donal. Thank you for listening, and we'll chat to you all next week.